Wish you all happy Sheep Sunday. I say Sheep Sunday because unlike most gospel passages that will appear to us in the lectionary once every 3 years, the makers of the lectionary for some reason decided that this passage needed to be read every year. John, the 10th chapter. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand who is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. The hired hand runs away because a hired hand does not care for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. For this reason, the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it up again. I have received this from my Father. This is the wisdom of God. So I've taken a newspaper for just about my whole adult life. But I find that I don't really read the business section that much. I kind of peruse it. I do the same thing with the sports page these days because it lacks news these days. But I understand the sports page a lot more than I do the business page, particularly all those vocabulary. One time, Kenneth made fun of me. He liked economics and decided to test me on all these economic vocabulary, things like collateral, antitrust law, elasticity, excise tax, conglomerate, disequilibrium. Did I say derivatives yet? And then he threw in some things like stagflation, Goldilocks economy, and dead cat bounce. I want you to look that one up, dead cat bounce. It's a real word. One economic term that I thought I had down really well is investment. But it seems skewed to me, either that or it's developed two meanings, one for economics and one for everything else. Is investing in the market really investing? That's what I want to ask today. Some of you might remember the movie Pretty Woman. How many remember Pretty Woman? Everybody's seen that movie, right? Richard Gere, Julia Roberts, the businessman Edward Lewis, and the prostitute named Vivian. The backdrop is that Mr. Lewis has come to buy. What he does is he buys vulnerable companies, breaks them up into parts, and sells out all the parts. And the movie, at the time of the movie, he is working with a man who owns his own company, but is vulnerable, and Mr. Lewis is threatening to buy him out. Now, to my way of thinking, the man who owns the company is invested in the company. Mr. Lewis is not. This came to mind when I read the gospel text for this Sunday. I should say reread, because it comes up every year, about the Good Shepherd, one of the I am sayings. But I recognized something I had not paid so much attention to in the past, and that's the comparison between the Good Shepherd and the hired hand. I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd puts the sheep before himself, sacrifices himself if necessary. A hired hand is not a real shepherd. The sheep mean nothing to him. He sees a wolf come and runs for it, leaving the sheep to be ravaged and scattered by the wolf. He's only in it for the money. The sheep don't matter to him. That's from the Message. John's gospel is focused on being connected to Jesus. He says the sheep know him. There is a bond, a spiritual link stronger than any business deal. It's like they commingle, Jesus and his disciples. The connection between Jesus and his disciples is an internal connection. He says in the 17th chapter, as you, Father, are in me and I am in you, may they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. The glory you have given me, I have given them, so that they may be one as we are one. I in them and you in me. In you and you and me. Internally related, not they are invested. And it's much different than investing in a mutual fund. I remember the first time I learned about mutual funds. I won't tell you how old I got before I understood it, but it is not a single entity, is it? It's an amalgamation of many entities that don't have to have anything to do with each other, except that they're compiled by somebody. I thought, that's not investing. There's no there to invest in. It's only about money. There was a time, I think, when investing in the market was actually invested. My Uncle Tom, great Uncle Tom in North Carolina, played with the market quite a bit. But many of the companies he was investing in were North Carolina companies who, I don't know, he may have known them. He may have known the bosses. Maybe he called them up once in a while to the CEO and wanted to tell them how to run the company. I don't think Jeff Bezos gets any calls like that, does he? And what about this thing called futures? Everybody understand investing in futures? I get it, and I'm not an economist, but as I get it, you bet that a commodity will go up or down in the future before it is even an entity yet. Does that sound like investment? Two words came up in those last two paragraphs. My uncle played the market, and with futures, you are betting. Playing and betting, or more succinctly, gambling. There was a time where America extolled the work ethic. Now people spend their time in conversation hoping to win the lotto. Does it ever bother us that the most popular career destination for the best and the brightest, all those who are going to Princeton and Harvard and Yale and wherever else, they want to get a job in the financial sector? The financial sector is a section of the economy made up of firms and institutions that provide financial services to commercial and retail customers. This sector comprises a wide range of companies, including banks, investment companies, insurance companies, and real estate firms. Now, what you're talking about there is a hired hands. These companies deal exclusively with money, oftentimes with other people's money. And oftentimes there's not really anything tangible that they're investing in other than other money. Least of all are they investing in people. It's kind of like the cloud. I still don't get the cloud. Where's the cloud? Is there any there? Are we living in a cloud of money without it connecting to anything tangible? Are we grounded? One place I have seen where investing becomes really investing is when one decides to invest in a company that's socially responsible. So you invest in a company that's owned by African Americans, or you invest in a company that is taking the environment seriously, which is a good thing. But when I talked with a long time ago my broker about it, he said, well, you can do that. Your heart may feel good, but it's not going to be good for your wallet. Where are we grounded and what do we invest in? If you ask that of American people, I think we're still pretty materialistic. And one of the first things we think of is things. A lot of people invest in cars, take great care of them. Other people invest in boats. And I'm telling you right now, that's a bad bet. We invest in houses and we make them our homes. There's different kinds of investment there. Economically, we are still betting that the value of the house will go up. So we're still gambling. We still could go underwater. But is that what it only means? What if I ask you, what is the value of your home? How would you hear it? A person who is materialistic invests in things. I don't want to believe that's the most meaningful investment in life. I want to posit two ways to approach life: the way of investment and the way of gambling. These are lenses, mindsets through which we see life. The way of gambling is like playing a game, kind of like playing Monopoly, where you maneuver, manipulate, and risk another game so that you are closer to the top. The way of gambling is about winning. Greed is good. Another economic term for you: market manipulation. What it means is basically there are all these different ways that you can cheat. Churning. Yeah, that's one. Buying and selling a stock at the same price in order to attract investors and raise the price. Stock bashing. Orchestrated misinformation about a stock or company, usually negative, to drive down the price. Pump and dump. Instead of putting our legitimate information about a company, the promoter sends bogus emails, that's the pump, to unsophisticated investors, that would be somebody like me, driving up the price, and then selling, dump, essentially taking the investor's money. Do you think Donald Trump ever did that? Wash trade, buying and selling repeatedly to drive up the price. Bear raid, pushing the price down by short selling. Do we all remember what happened recently to GameStop? Do we remember that? As I understand it, a hedge fund decided to sell GameStop short because it was vulnerable and they can make some money off of it, which means that they were betting on the company failing. It's a very aggressive and predatory move. Hedge fund, by the way, mentioned that's another word. A limited partnership of investors that uses high-risk methods, such as investing with borrowed money in the hopes of making large capital gains, has nothing to do with your garden budget. So in response to GameStop and the hedge fund that was short selling them, a group of, I guess, internet traders organized and bought GameStop stock. The price went up by 8,000%. So the guys on the net became very rich, and it hurt the mighty hedge fund. What this is a battle, isn't it? There's a war going on here. And that's what the way of gambling ultimately will lead to. The way of investing is about the heart. Marcus Borg defined faith as what we give our heart to. And I think that fits very well with a better understanding of investment. What do we give our hearts to? What do we invest in? This is a better way to ask the question. A home, family, a person, a group of people, a social issue, a ministry, a cause. When we invest in these things, we are not investing simply economically. We are investing our hearts, emotionally and spiritually. And when we invest that way, these things become part of us. That's what investment is. so that when we lose them, we grieve, which is the sign that we really have been investing. When gamblers lose, they don't grieve, they get angry and blame somebody else. Then they go back and recalibrate their lives to optimize winning the next time. Gamblers are flighty and fickle. They're ready to buy and sell at any moment, even a micro moment. Of course, Mr. Lewis in Pretty Woman was a gambler. The way of investment is not about being flighty or fickle or changing on a dime or leaving without notice. The way of investment is about staying. I've always been a little troubled by the Methodist itinerant system because for so long it was about pastors coming and leaving and leaving and leaving and leaving. And, you know, if you don't have a little time, it's very difficult to invest in people. Another movie, less known, this is a French movie set in North Africa. It's entitled Of Gods and Men. Anybody see Of Gods and Men? Oh, good. Look at that, Wes. Monastery that exists in Northern Africa, probably Algeria, in a community that is totally Muslim. The tale begins about how the monks were investing in the townspeople. They didn't have to. Monks, you know, they're supposed to stay by themselves. But they made a commitment to relate to, create investments and relationships with the people in the town. But then their armed radicals showed up to harass the community, and the monks especially were harassed because they're not Muslim. Townspeople did their best to take care of the monks. The monks were given the opportunity to return to France. They didn't. They stayed and they gave their lives for their friends. One of my favorite revealing lines in Pretty Woman is when Vivian finally understands what Mr. Lewis is doing by buying out the man who owns the company, such a nice man. And she asks, what about the people? The people who work for that company who will be laid off, what about their lives? And Mr. Lewis says, this has nothing to do with people. It's strictly business. The intended message of the movie Pretty Woman, I think, is a good one. It's many sins notwithstanding. It's a condemnation of Mr. Lewis's behavior and about his transformation from not buying the company to piecemeal it out, but actually working with the man who owns the company even more, deciding not just to hire Vivian to be his escort for a weekend, but possibly to invest in her. From the way of gambling to the way of investment. The whole story of Jesus in John is about investment. Don't be fickle. Don't go to the Gnostics. Don't go to the Jews. You have to be fully invested in Jesus. That's the message in John. For John, God invested in us in Christ by virtue of the incarnation. And our path first is to invest ourselves in Jesus. Then invest ourselves in the community and in each other and live the way of investment and not the way of gambling. Which way have we chosen with our lives? What have we been investing in throughout our lives? Where are we grounded? And how is our heart today? A final scene from Pretty Woman, Mr. Lewis is talking about how he went to a counselor to talk about his father, paid tons of money to come out and be able to say that he was angry. What I've wanted to ask him is, when you were talking about your father, Did your father invest in you, or did he simply take you to the casino? Did he treat you like a person, or was it all strictly business? From the 17th chapter of John, verses 25 and 26. Righteous Father, the world has never known you, but I have known you, and these disciples know that you sent me on this mission. I have made your very being known to them, who you are and what you do, and continue to make it known so that your love for me might be in them, exactly as I am in them. Amen.